The scanner arm swept over Soren Das's wrist for the third time, and the number did not change. Percent. The assessment hall was packed. 200 hunters, 16 registry officials, and one very long silence. The output board above the scanning platform had displayed every result that morning in clean green numerals. Beside Soren's name, the number glowed red. The lead assessor, a thin man with a silver collar pin, did not look at Soren when he spoke. Connector class output, 0.00%. File status updated to defective. Guild contract, House Veldrith Auxiliary, voided effective immediately. He stamped the document without blinking. You're free to go. Somewhere in the third row, Aldrin Call, the registry's top-ranked connector, tier bond certification, waiting for his own renewal, leaned toward the woman beside him and said something quiet. The woman beside him was Vela Rin. She had been Soren's partner for 3 years. She did not look at the platform. Aldrin's voice carried anyway. Defective output at year 3. Means he was never actually forming bonds, just mimicking the class. He shrugged. Waste of a registration slot. Soren stepped down from the platform. He picked up his file copy. He walked out. He was not surprised. The scanner had been reading him wrong since the first assessment. He had never known how to explain that. The bonds he formed did not feel like output. They felt like being there, carrying Aaron Mast's equipment to the depot when his back gave out on floor 12. Supplies to the custodian team on sub-level 3 after the rift surge flooded the lower stairwells. Sitting with old Paris from the gate logging office on the 3 mornings after his wife passed. Saying nothing, just being present. The scanner measured output, force, amplitude, projection. It had no column for that other thing. That afternoon, Vela transferred her partnership registration to Aldrin Call. The form was processed in 40 minutes. Soren found out when the system notification arrived on his phone, a single line. Partnership record updated. He sent her a short message. Congratulations, I hope it goes well. He meant it. He turned off the phone and went to sleep. 3 weeks later, he was assigned volunteer maintenance clearance for the lower levels of Veldrath Spire, sub-level 1 through corridor B9. It was not hunter work, it was mop and restock work, the kind that kept the spire running and that no ranked hunter would touch. Soren did it without complaint. He learned the stairwells. He learned which corridor lights flickered on floor 4 and how to reset them. He learned the custodians' names, and they learned his, and sometimes on long shifts they shared food from a thermos and talked about nothing in particular. He was there for 11 months. He was in corridor B7, replacing a burnt-out relay panel when the alarms started. The floor 95 assault had been running for 6 hours. Aldrin Call stood at the rear of the primary strike formation with 4 S-rank hunters ahead of him. And the most expensive bond amplification rig the registry had ever certified strapped to his forearm. His bond lines were top tier, contractual, optimized, calibrated to each hunter's output frequency on paper. Every bond had been filed, verified, and stamped. Registry called it a masterwork of precision connection. On floor 95, the dungeon pressure was 3.4 atmospheres above surface baseline. At 3 atmospheres, paper bonds snapped. It happened between 1 second and the next. The 4 S ranks felt it the way you feel the moment a rope goes slack. Not a sharp cut, just absence. Calder Peth, the strike lead, a class A disintegration skill, and hit at 38% of his registered output. The dungeon's guardian construct took it without flinching. Around him, the other 3 S ranks reported the same, 40%, 36, 42. Their bond amplification had dropped to 0. Aldrin's rig showed green. He checked it twice. The problem was not the rig. The problem was that the bonds had never been real. An S-rank support operator named Jinay Var, pinned behind a collapsed column on floor 95, opened an emergency channel to the Spire's internal system and broadcast one line. Primary connector bond lines severed. Team output at 38 to 42%. Requesting secondary anchor, anyone. The system searched for available registered connectors within Spire range. It found 0. Then it found 1. Deregistered. Maintenance clearance only. Corridor B7. Sub-level 1. The system paused. Its classification protocol had no category for what it was reading. Soren Dast, file status defective, registered output 0.00%. The system queried the bond count subroutine as a secondary check. The subroutine returned 312. 312 active, living unbroken bonds, formed across 37 months of volunteer work, equipment hauling supply runs, and sitting with grieving people in empty offices. Not filed, not stamped, not calibrated, just real. System ran the amplification calculation and returned an error. It ran it again. Another error. The output figure was not computable within standard registry parameters. It logged a single line. System. Resonance absolute. Dormant class activated. Bond count 312. Anchor designation Soren Dast. Resonance output immeasurable. In corridor B7. Relay panel in Soren's hands hummed, then blazed white, then went still. He set it down carefully. On floor 95, Calderpeth threw the same class, a disintegrations skill, for the second time. The output registered at 341%. He stood there for a moment, looking at the number on his display, and did not move. Around him, the other three S-ranks were staring at their own readouts: 280%, 319%, 298%. Every bond line on their amplification displays had gone incandescent. Not the clean, calibrated glow of Aldrin's certified channels. Something older and steadier, like a city grid coming back online after a blackout. And behind the numbers, they felt it. Not the mechanical connection of a registered bond link, but something that felt inexplicably like being known. Jin Var had worked floor 57 recovery 6 months ago after a cave-in. A maintenance worker with sandy hair and a worn vest had helped her carry an injured hunter to the surface elevator. No request, no credit, just there. She remembered his name because he had told her a bad joke about relay panels, and she had laughed despite herself. She threw her secondary skill. It hit at 309%. The Guardian construct fell in 11 minutes. The Spire system logged the floor 95 clear and generated its standard post-mission bond analysis. The report was 400 lines long. Every line pointed to the same source. Active, 312 bonds. Composite resonance multiplier, time 0.8 to 4.1 per bonded individual. Resonance output, immeasurable. Class designation, unranked. Above classification, the anchor. The report generated a secondary flag. Bond authenticity review, primary connector, Aldrin call. The system had cross-referenced Aldrin's certified bond lines against the authenticity parameters, now visible in the active resonance field. Comparison took 0.3 seconds. Aldrin call certifications were suspended pending investigation at 9:47 p.m. The registry board arrived in corridor B7 at 10:15 p.m. There were 4 of them, including the thin man with the silver collar pin. They found Soren Dast finishing the relay panel replacement, a cup of cold tea on the floor beside his tool bag. He did not look surprised. He looked, as he always looked, like he had time. The lead assessor held out a reinstatement document. The registry wishes to correct the classification error of. That's not what I want, Soren said. The assessor stopped. 312 names on a reinstatement and compensation review. Soren zipped his tool bag. Every person I've worked with in this building who's been passed over for guild placement, denied equipment requisitions, or had their support classifications downgraded in the last 3 years. Their files get reviewed. You start with the custodian teams on sub-level 3. Stood up. When that's done, we can talk about my classification. The 4 board members looked at each other. The thin man said, "That's an unusual set of..." "It's the only set," Soren said. He picked up his tool bag and his cold tea and walked to the elevator. On the observation deck above the main atrium, Vela Rin had been standing for 40 minutes, watching the bond analysis report scroll on the Spire's public display board. She had watched Aldrin's certification suspension notice. She had watched the 312 names populate the anchor log, one by one. Every person she had seen Soren help during the 3 years she had called herself partner. She had watched and said nothing. When Soren stepped out of the service elevator into the main corridor, she was there. "Soren." Voice was careful. "I didn't know. I should have. I didn't see what you were building." He looked at her for a moment. His expression was not cold. It was not bitter. It was simply clear. "I know," he said. Then he turned and walked toward the exit, tool bag over one shoulder, his cold tea in his hand. The Spire's lights gleaming on the floor around him. 312 bond channels, humming quietly in the dark. The most powerful thing in the building, leaving. The display board, above the atrium entrance, cycled to its final log entry for the night. Anchor. Soren Dast, unranked above classification. The anchor. Bonds active, 312, status, field clear. The thin man with the silver collar pin read it 3 times. Then he picked up his pen and started on the 312 names.